Welcome everybody, thank you so much for stopping by. Tonight, we're going to be doing a quick non-audiophile style review of the recently released Sonos Era 300 speakers. Although I am fully aware of the ecosystem and all of the great products that they make, I've never actually purchased a pair for myself. And I've also heard very little of the performance of these with my own ears. Due to the high cost of these speakers, just like with the HomePods, I wasn't able to pull the trigger on these. Now, fast forward, the Era 300 has a couple of things that really speak to me and that made me interested enough to go ahead and pull the trigger finally. One of the great new features of the Sonos Era 300 is its compatibility with Dolby Atmos music. Another thing that I think is really great about the speaker is this funky new design. I think they're a really interesting looking speaker and they add a little bit of character to the design of my particular living room. The setup process itself is actually pretty cool and interesting. They use a feature called True Play. Now when using True Play, it's going to have you calibrate to two separate positions. One would be your primary seating position when watching movie content, and the second tuning would be to enhance the overall sound in the space as a whole. Now if one of your family members were to walk in the room as you're doing this True Play tuning setup, wandering around in circles waving your arms, they might call to get a 72-hour hold on you, so be careful. Let them know ahead of time, I'm tuning the acoustics of our room to optimize the sound quality. Once the process is complete, you get a really cool sound that plays throughout the environment and lets you really get the first full effect of how these Sonos speakers sound together. Once I got finished with the setup process, I was finally able to sit down and play some music that I enjoyed to see just how good these speakers can sound. Now, I did a little bit of messing around and trying different positions in my living room. I ideally would have been able to place both of them in a position that would reflect more of a traditional 5.1 system, you know, having both of the channels behind you left and right, and I ended up going with one on the table near my back door as well as one sort of near the entryway. Now after finally deciding on the position of these two speakers, getting them calibrated to the room, and doing tons of listening on movies and music, I'll tell you what happened. This is what happened. And then I was so impressed by the extra dimension of that bass that was brought in by the Generation 3 subwoofer. This happened. I'm telling you right now, don't get yourself started on these speakers, because once you have them in your house, all you're going to start doing is thinking about how you can incorporate some of the other Sonos products, because they sound that good. They work incredibly well, and I think it's like an experience that no other company is offering right now as far as home audio is concerned. Now, having mostly completed the main floor of my house, I have myself a 7.1.4 Dolby Atmos setup in my living room that sounds absolutely amazing. Yes, absolutely amazing. And I've been sitting at the house ever since, so the last 72 hours, I actually intended on making this video quite a bit sooner, but I have found myself sitting in the living room, and that's honestly where I've been ever since. Now, Apple has some really great pre-made playlists that are genre specific. For instance, they have a classical Dolby Atmos playlist, or a rock playlist, hip-hop, R&B, etc. Now, the quality of the Dolby Atmos mix is really going to boil down to the skill level of the audio engineer doing the mixing. They can vary dramatically. I've heard Dolby Atmos mixes that were so incredible they blew my socks off. One of those would be What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. That is something you need to experience in Dolby Atmos. It's incredible. Now, one of the things that I need to make sure to mention is that in order for you to listen to Dolby Atmos-enabled music through your Sonos Era 300, it has to be played through the Sonos app specifically. If you try to listen to a Dolby Atmos-enabled track through the actual Apple Music app or your Tidal app, it does not work. What you'll have to do is connect your music service through the Sonos app to enable playback of Dolby Atmos music. Now, I don't want to exaggerate and make it sound like this is a huge deal, but I do want to mention that when you're listening to Dolby Atmos music through the Sonos app, track skipping is very laggy. Now, that can be frustrating. It's not just laggy when you're sitting there going crazy hitting the skip button trying to find the right track, even if you have a playlist loaded up and you just hit play and let it run through, there's going to be a 4 or 5 second delay between each track playing, which I think is pretty lame. There's even a toggle switch within the app that's called crossfade, which would of course blend one song with the next song and crossfade them into one another. It doesn't even work because there's so much lag in between the two tracks that it's not even able to pull them together. So I think it's really important that Sonos understands that this is an issue, and if they want to keep people immersed in their music, they're going to have to figure out a way to eliminate these major delays between tracks. The bottom line is this: I am a huge fan of Sonos at this point. There hasn't been a moment that's gone by so far where I have questioned or second guessed whether or not it was a good idea to get myself in this Sonos ecosystem. The sound and the immersion and just how quality everything is, and also how great it looks just sitting in your living room or whatever space they're in. Sonos, you have another huge fan right here, and I plan on expanding this system as much as I can possibly afford to over the years. That's my final thought, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I appreciate it so much, and hopefully this review helped you decide whether or not this system is right for you. Have a great night. Peace.